It doesn't matter who you are. Trust me. If you travel enough or if you attend enough events, something is going to happen at some point to set you back. There's going to be delays. There's going to be some kind of hiccup. There's going to be those times where the flight crews are not there on time. Something's going to set you back and ultimately ruin your experience, whether it's you getting from point A to point B or getting back from point B to point A. It doesn't matter. It's only a matter of time. Something's going to happen, but it's not the end of the world. And trust me, there are ways that you can actually work the system where you can recoup some of that cost and you can make some of those wrongs actually become rights, or at least compensate you for the time that you lost or the stress that you've experienced. And that's what we're going to discuss today. What's up, everyone? Eric Allen, founder of Planiversity, back here with you today to talk a little bit about how to recover some of the lost time and the stress that you've experienced, how to get back some of that. I don't know if you want to just call it payback, but you definitely want to be compensated for the amount of stress, right? A lot of times people don't think that they deserve a compensation. You know, they might actually have that thought in their head, but they don't act on that. You know, I can't tell you how many times as a younger guy when I'd be traveling, I'd experience the stress, and I'm just like, you know, it's just part of this. If I'm flying somewhere and, you know, the flight crews are kind of screwing me around and I'm not getting boarded soon enough because, you know, they're just waiting and keeping me on standby just in case they need to drop someone off, or there's just something going on, you know, maybe the plane's late, the plane's running late to where you're going, and now it's going to set you off for your connecting flight and you're going to miss that. There's always something, right? And I used to think about it in terms of like, it's just part of the process and I'm furious about it, but what the hell can I do? I don't know how to do anything about it other than just complain to the woman at the desk. And a lot of times that's what people do, is they end up going up to the person at the desk and they try to complain with them. And they're like, you know, this is ridiculous. I was supposed to be on that flight. Come on, we've all seen those videos of people on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, of somebody flipping out on the person that's at the boarding gate, the ticketing agent, somebody. They're smashing computers, they're screaming, they're getting taken out of the terminal by the police. And that's just not the way to go, obviously, but that's just how their emotions are telling them to deal with the situation at that moment. But I can tell you that there are ways that you can actually get back some of that stress that you've been dealt in a way that seems fair, that seems just. You know, it's, you get compensated for that time, or you feel like you're at least recognized for having to deal with that stress. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about that based on 3 recent experiences that I've had. Now, I'm not creating these out of thin air. I'm not fabricating these. I travel a lot. So the fact that I travel a lot means my exposure to these types of scenarios is going to be much greater, right? If I only travel once or twice a year, then I might only experience these things once every few years, you know? It could be that over the course of 3 years, I only fly 6 times or 5 times. And out of those 5 times, only one of those times was really just ridiculous and stressful. But, you know, it was only 20% of the time. So I'm like, you know, it sucks, but I guess we just got to kind of deal with it. Well, you don't have to deal with it. You know, you got to kind of work with that moment. You got to handle that moment and understand to a certain degree that there's just some things that you cannot change. And one being your behavior, your reaction. You can absolutely control that, okay? But when it comes to external factors like what's going on with the rental car company, if they're out of rentals, or if the plane's broken, if weather's rolling in and now all of a sudden you can't get out on time and now it's a weather delay, so the flight or the airline is not going to compensate you for a hotel room for the night. So you're either going back to the hotel, you're going back to your home, or you're sleeping in the terminal. That's the only options you really have, right? So the three experiences that I've had recently, starting with number one, and let's start off with this. I'm going to title this The Power of Asking, all right? Because it's very important to understand that the only thing separating you from your key end result is the ability to just ask. And a lot of people don't ask. They just sit there, they stew. They walk away from the experience having a very negative impression. And then what do? They typically spread that negative impression to everybody else. And that's all that people think is like, oh my God, my friend Steve, he just went on a flight to Orlando and he had an absolutely terrible experience. They lost his bag. They delayed his flight because of weather, and it's one thing after another. And people just kind of take that negative energy and dump it onto everybody else because that's their experience. But I can tell you, is flying as much as I do, and I fly often, right? I'm back and forth to Europe every month. I'm always flying, I'm always traveling, I'm always doing something, and these situations don't happen all the time. They don't even happen often. Now, I will say that flight delays are pretty common, but flight delays are often able to be made up for in flight. So if the airline doesn't get off the ground or the aircraft doesn't get off the ground for an additional 15 minutes. Maybe it takes them 15 minutes extra because you know how it is. You're getting on a plane and some people are just dragging their ass and they're really slow about sitting down, about putting their baggage away, not realizing that everybody, the ticketing agent, the flight attendants, the pilots, everybody wants you to hurry your ass up so they can close the doors so that way they can get this thing going and get you to your destination on time. But sometimes, it's not even the airlines. It's the people getting on the airplanes that are just really dragging. They're being slow about everything. And that's what's holding people up. Next thing you know, you're slow getting out of there by 15, 20 minutes. But it's not the end of the world because the airline or that aircraft can actually make up some of that lost time en route by climbing to a higher altitude where the air is a little bit more gentle. It suits flying with that type of aircraft because it's smoother. It just kind of glides along, or they'll just kind of pick up the pace a little bit, right? Or sometimes they'll even just get vectored direct to their destination instead of being vectored around. So there are ways to actually make up some of those small chunks of time that are lost. Those are the ones that you really have to worry about. But, instead of just kind of speculating, I'm going to go one by one through these three scenarios just so you can kind of hear the experience. And I'm going to tell you that a resolution with each of these was gained just by the power of asking, right? So the first one would be my son and his mother were on their way over from Germany recently, and they had a flight delay. So she let me know before they came over that they were having some trouble getting their seats assigned and contacting the airline and everything else. So I thought, okay, why don't I help out? And the night before they came over here, I decided to just get on the phone, call Lufthansa, and see if I could actually find out if, I could get them the specialty meals or if I can get them designated seats, whatever. And I come to find out after doing a little hunting that their flight had actually been canceled, but we had no idea, right? Didn't know. Nobody let us know, and didn't get an email, didn't get any kind of phone call. So it was really on us. And the only thing that would have happened had we not called is they would have gone to the airport, of course, which would have been a 2-hour drive just to show up there and be told that the flight's been canceled, turn around, go back home, wait another day, or get a hotel room, pay out of your pocket. Sorry, it's not our fault. Can't do anything about it, right? And so finding out that flight had been canceled and pushed back one day, I call the airline. I make sure that I at least get them seats booked on the next flight possible, which was 24 hours later. But calling Lufthansa at that point and just talking with the agent, okay, of course, stressful, you just lost time. You expect to have some time with family, especially, I'm talking about my son. So I want to spend that time with my son. And now I've just lost a day with my son on account of the airline canceling the flight. But one of the things that the flight is supposed to do, or the airline is supposed to do, is they're actually supposed to notify you in the event they decide to cancel your flight. Of course, they can't have, 250 people showing up to the airport ready to check in for a flight that's not there. That's not going to happen. So what ends up happening is You call the airline like I did and talk to them, and they'll sit there and they'll kind of look into it and try and figure out where the ball was dropped, essentially. All right. And what they ended up realizing was Lufthansa did not actually send out a notification saying that the flight had been canceled. So this case, the airline actually botched up the process of notification. They're supposed to notify you in the event of a cancellation, but they did not notify, right? And so when they don't notify, who's the fault lie on, right? It's definitely not the passenger, because we did our part, purchase the ticket, expect to show up on time. That's me doing my part. What they do is they operate the aircraft. They get you from point A to point B. And if they can't get you from point A to point B, the least they can do is just let you know why they can't make that happen and try and give you some kind of workaround, right? If they can book you on a flight later that day, or maybe the next day, and then maybe even compensate you a little bit for the lost time, right? Well, in this case, it wasn't a little bit of a compensation for a lost day. It was an entire refund of the ticket. All right, so now we're talking almost $1,500 being credited back to the credit card on behalf of the airline. They said, hey, guess what? We made a mistake. We're going to fix this, and we're going to go ahead and send you that money back. I didn't believe it. I didn't think it was actually going to happen. But of course, you go on the airline's website, and there is actually a page where you could submit I guess it would be kind of like a complaint. You submit your complaint, you request what it is that you want, which in this case, I wanted compensation. I didn't want a flight voucher. I just wanted to have a refund on the tickets. I honestly didn't even think they were going to go for it, but sure enough, the airline agreed to it, and they compensated me by giving me back the entire amount of the ticket purchase. That's outstanding, right? Now, I could have easily been one of those people who just said, oh, this sucks. The airline sucks. I'm so mad about this. How could they do this to me? They've just wasted my time. They've just taken my time away from me and my son. That's who I could have become. I could have become that person in the moment, but instead what I decided to do was try to get some kind of clarification in the situation. And by calling them, having that discussion, finding out where the issue was, we end up finding out that it was the airline that made the mistake. And as a result of that, I get compensated. I get paid back for that ticket. I get refunded in full. That's a fantastic outcome. Okay, you can't get time back, of course. That's a shame that type of thing happens, but it happened, and you can't be the type of person who's going to sit there and cry over spilled milk. If something like that happens, it's very unfortunate. We agree, they agree, and the most you can do is, you got to give some kind of suggestion to the airline. If you're going to sit there and you're going to complain about it and say, how dare you guys do this to me, the least you can do is say, hey, look, well, since you did that to me, I would appreciate a travel voucher. I would appreciate some kind of credit. I would appreciate a refund where you're able to. And in this case, I got a 100% refund. That's fantastic. That is a result, okay? And the only thing it took was me just asking them for that. It wasn't me just sitting there stewing about the problem, okay? That's not going to give you a result. You need to just go forward and ask, okay? Situation number 2. So on my last trip to Europe, I get to the rental car agency, and so there was a little bit of a hiccup, and I was supposed to have my rental car picked up around 7:30 in the morning, and they were not tracking that. They were thinking I was coming in about 4 hours later than that. So they say, hey, we don't have your car. Which I don't understand how that's even possible. Okay, maybe you don't have that exact car, but you got to have something in that ballpark. But sure enough, they didn't. But they say, hey, you know what? We can give you this BMW, great car, diesel just like you wanted, and here's the rate on it, which really wasn't that much of a difference. And I said, okay, well, if that's all you're able to do right now, I guess that's all there is to it. Then we're just going to go ahead and do that. So I go in, I rent the car. I walk to the garage. Now, the garage in that airport location is about 10-minute walk away. It doesn't sound that far, right? 10 minutes, it's not that bad. But once you've been traveling all night, you gotta walk, you gotta go pick up your bags, you gotta go through customs, then you gotta go to the rental car desk, you gotta stand in line, you gotta wait to get up there, you go through that process, and then you gotta walk from there to get to the car. By the time you get to the car, you just want to get the hell out of the airport, right? But what happens As I get to the car, I do my usual walk around, which is important. You always want to do a walk around, right? You want to make sure that you identify any kind of superficial damage or any significant damage. And in this case, this beautiful car that only had about 27,000 miles on it had a hole punched in the bumper, almost as if whoever had been driving it before backed up against a trailer hitch or something with a sharp edge and actually punched a hole in the bumper that was about the size of a quarter. Okay. And not only that, but the left exhaust was now hanging down a little bit. So they clocked something pretty good backing into it, right? And I didn't get that kind of notification from the rental car company, but it was frustrating. The rental car company didn't say, hey, look, we've got this. I don't have the Audi for you, but I do have this BMW. It's a really nice one. Here's a price on it. I can give you that. It's only got 27,000 miles on it. And then what happens? You get to the car, you find out that there's some damage on there. And of course, they didn't tell me at the desk. They didn't say, hey, look, here's that great car. By the way, it's got a hole in the bumper. I'm not going to pay for a car with a hole in the bumper. I mean, is a hole in the bumper the worst thing in the world? No, but if you're paying the money, you expect the quality, right? It's not like it's my own vehicle. If I had my own personal vehicle and I backed into something and I punched some little hole in the bumper that was about the size of a quarter, would I be frustrated and throw the car away? Absolutely not. I'd just continue to drive it around, maybe eventually get it fixed, but it wouldn't ruin my life. But I own the car, In this case, I'm renting a car. And if you're renting the car, you expect the quality. Unless you go for like a really crappy car rental company, which I didn't, you expect some kind of quality backing that, right? And so my options were to either stick with the car, drive it back to the house, try and get some kind of resolution on it from there, or walk my ass back down to the airport 10 minutes away, stand in line for about another 15 minutes, and then get another car assigned to me after explaining the situation. 10-minute walk back up. Now I'm like almost an hour behind, and I just want to get on the road because I'm tired, right? And what happens is I end up going back to the house. Of course, I got pictures. Now, you always want to make sure you take pictures. Don't wait till you're back at the house because there's no way to prove that you took some kind of pictures or that you inspected it when you picked it up. Take pictures where you pick it up because most pictures, especially in an iPhone like I have, they have a timestamp. So you can actually like swipe up on the picture. It'll show the location. It'll show the timestamp. It'll show the date. You have your proof right there. You say, hey, look, I was right there. I rented the car at 7:37. I took this picture at 7:45. So there was no way that I could have created this damage. And I took the picture right there at the airport. And here's a picture of the car in its parking spot. So screw you. You're not going to get me, So what do? I get back to the house. I email them. I send them the pictures. They write back and say, hey, your complaint's been received. We send it up to customer service to evaluate it, and we'll get back to you soon. Well, I didn't hear back from them for days, all right? But I did end up getting a call several days later from one of the members of Six Rent a Car. And what did they do? They were asking me about my recent car experience, how everything went, if there's anything that could do better. And I said, hey, you know what? It's funny that you should call me because I actually did have a situation. I explained the entire thing to her. And what does she say? Well, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry for your experience. We do appreciate your business. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you at least half your money back. And then we're going to make sure that your experience on the next rental, which for me is going to be next month, is going to be that much better for you. So again, the only thing I did was I took the little time to send out an email. I sent some pictures. When I had a rep on the phone, I explained the situation. Now, again, I could have been that person who's just sitting there saying, this sucks. I'm pissed off. I'm so frustrated. I can't believe they did that to me. But the only thing I'm going to do is sit here and stew and argue about it or complain about it and never actually do anything about it. Well, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be somebody who just sits there in frustration and complains. I'd rather be that person who says, all right, I can't do anything about it right now, but what I can do is start the chain of communication and see if I can get some kind of resolution on this. And what did I end up getting when I talked to that person is at least half of a refund, right? So I didn't get the full amount back, but at least half back. And then I don't know what this means, but to make sure that my experience on the next rental is going to be that much better. Now that could mean that I go to rent the same car again, and they say, hey, look, we've given you, or we've authorized you a free upgrade to this vehicle, or we'll give you a credit on this one, for this amount. But there's some kind of resolution, and that's exactly what you're looking for. And the only thing, again, I had to do was choose not to be a person who complains and choose to be a person who just asks for it. All right. There's so much power in asking. All right. Scenario number 3 was on my way back from Germany. Now, this is all in the same time period. And this is all in a matter of a month, right? My flight coming back from Germany this past week, right? I'm late taking off. Again, just like I said, people slow getting on the airplane. The airplane's behind by like 15, 20 minutes. In this case, it was behind by about 30, 40 minutes. So we didn't take off on time. And what ended up happening was we couldn't make up that time en route. I was supposed to land around 2:25, and then I had a follow-on flight at 4:15. That's already a tight enough time. I don't like those small windows. If I'm going to have a layover, I want that layover to be at least 2 hours, right? Because it takes time to get through customs. It takes time to collect your bag and then recheck it. It just takes a little bit of time. Maybe you want to grab something to eat in between, right? Maybe you got to use the bathroom. But whatever it is, you don't want to put yourself into a box, So I like at least 2 hours when I have a layover. If it's 3 hours, that's even better, all right? Don't push yourself, because if your window is very, very small for your layover, the chances that you extend outside that window and now have to find a different flight are so much higher. All right. So what I did was, I'm on this flight. We come back. We were supposed to land at 2:25. We land at 3, and we're taxiing back to the terminal, and the aircraft just stops. It just sits there on the tarmac because we're letting other aircraft go past. Obviously, the pilots don't have any control over this because they're being controlled by ground. And we get back. I'm looking at my watch and I'm saying, oh my God, I'm going to go crazy. I've got an hour and 15 minutes to make it through customs, collect my bag, recheck my bag, get to another section of the airport and get on my flight, while they're boarding. And keep in mind, most flights will close the doors, or the ticketing agents will typically close the doors 10 to 15 minutes before they push off from the gate, right? Because that's when their pay starts, all right? So I'm thinking all this, and I'm like, it's going to be tight, but I can probably do it. And then I end up getting into the airport at Charlotte. I get into the terminal. I get into the customs area, and I find out that a flight had just arrived before ours, and there was a ton of people down there. Honestly, if you just looked at this line, you knew immediately you're going to be standing there for a minimum of 30 minutes. And it was like 30 to 45 minutes easily. Now, people immediately started going into the complaining mode, right? You just can't do that. But they did. And I'm not just talking about one or two, but so many people, everyone on your left and right, everybody's just kind of complaining. People are asking other people, hey, do you mind if I jump ahead of you? My flight takes off in 20 minutes, not realizing you're never going to make that. 20 minutes, you're never going to make that. You still got to get through customs, still got to collect your bag, still recheck your bag, still walk to that section of the airport, and then they've probably already closed the door. It's just not going to happen, right? It's not in the cards. But so what I did was, instead of sitting there and focusing on how shitty of a situation that was and how stressful that was, and oh my God, I'm going to miss my flight, this is incredible, I just immediately got on the phone with American Airlines. Immediately. Like, don't even waste time. If you got the app, you can sit there. Now, typically, if your flight gets canceled, you can immediately rebook another one right there on the app. You just pull it up, you scroll, you're like, hey, cool, I can rebook my flight. Pick your own, or you could go through American Airlines and let them help you out with that. But it's great to have the app, right? It saves so much time. Don't stand in line. I see so many people last year in Phoenix, and when I was on a flight that literally got canceled last minute, everyone just got right in the line to go see the American Airlines agent. And I'm talking, there's probably like 70, 80 people standing in this line. And now one of them just pulls out their phone, pulls up the app. But me and my buddy, we just do that. We pull up the app, boom, I'm rebooked on this flight. He's rebooked on that flight. Resolved. Done. All right. But in this case, My flight hadn't been canceled because it hadn't taken off yet, right? I just knew I wasn't going to make it. So I call American Airlines. I say, hey, look, I got a flight that's supposed to take off at this time. I just arrived from Germany. I'm in Charlotte right now. I know I'm not going to make that flight. I am in customs. It's going to take me at least another half hour. By the time I get to that gate, I'm going to be late. It's just not going to work. So they immediately go into reprogramming mode and they book me something new only about an hour and 10 minutes later, right? So yeah, it sucks. I missed my flight, and I did end up missing that flight, right? Because I timed it out. And by the time I actually got out of customs, rechecked my bag, and actually got up to that area of the airport, it was 5 minutes before that plane was taking off. It's 5 minutes before the plane's taking off, you have no hope. They're not saving that flight for you, okay? They're closing the door. They're pushing off from the gate. They're already taxiing. They want to get wheels up on time, and they're not going to save it for one person. So, you know, again, I could have been one of those people. And I was amazed because when I got off the phone, I had a very calming sigh of relief. I'm like, all right, I couldn't take off at 4:15, but I'm taking off a little while after that. Now that means I don't have to rush. I don't have to worry about it. If this takes a little bit longer, not a big deal, right? Because I've already got a seat on the next flight. And I hear other people still doing their thing still. Hey, do you mind if I get ahead of you? My flight takes off in 20 minutes. Oh my God, I'm never going to make my flight. And I told some people, I'm like, hey, look, I just got on the phone with American Airlines, and knowing if you're not going to make your flight, just give them a call and they're going to rebook you right away. And they would just stand there and stew. Instead of getting on the phone and making those calls, those adjustments, they just stood there and stewed, and that was the way they dealt with it. And I had an immediate resolution, whereas they did not. Now, obviously, I didn't follow these people around. I don't know how their situation ended up, but my guess is they got to their gate. They had missed their flight. They had to see the ticketing agent right there, and then they finally got booked. But I'm not waiting. If you know you're not going to make that flight, immediately get on the phone, start talking to them, because you never know. If you're missing your flight, chances are a lot of other people are missing their flight too. You're just one of many, and the longer you wait, the more those seats are going to fill up. Now, it turns out that flight from Charlotte to Philadelphia was 100% full. 100% full. I kid you not. Which means if I would have waited, now this is a flight that took off only a little bit after my original flight. If I would have waited, chances are they would have said, hey, look, that flight's full already, but I got another one going out tonight at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And that would have just made my day so much more miserable. So the moral of the story is, do not be afraid to ask. You can't be that type of person who just sits there and you stew and you get frustrated and you get so angry that you just don't do anything but complain. The power of asking is very, very important. And you have to understand, just like I said in the beginning of this video, is that if you're traveling enough, if you're attending enough events, if you're out there exposing yourself to this environment enough, it's a numbers game. It's the law of averages. It's only a matter of time before you get to that point where something's going to disrupt your flow. You might be doing everything you need to do, but that doesn't mean that something's not going to happen, right? It's only a matter of time. You're going to experience delays at some point. You're going to experience hiccups. And instead of being that person who stews about it or gets frustrated and flips out and just gets angry and has nothing but a bad attitude about it, understand in that moment that there's nothing you can do immediately other than just kind of deal with the situation in the moment, breathe, relax for a few seconds, recompose your thoughts, move on, and just make a plan. But if you're frustrated by the performance of the company, by the airline, by the rental car agency, by whoever, the airport, just contact them and realize that you just got to get someone on the phone. A lot of times, if you go to the ticketing agent, if you go to the person at the desk, they may be able to help you right there and then. But if they can't, just understand that they're not your only outlet. You can actually just reach out to the company and say, hey, look, here's my experience. Here's what I was expecting. Here's what actually happened. What can you do for me? What can you do for me? That is so important. Never forget those words, because companies, will not be frustrated with you. They will not tell you, sorry, go to hell, we can't do anything for you. A lot of times, all you have to do is ask. And many times they will actually give you something. Even if they don't give you a full refund, even if they don't give you a full compensation, they might say, hey, look, we do appreciate your business. We want to make this right. We're going to give you, 10, 25% off your next rental or your next flight ticket. We're going to give you a travel voucher. Can we give you a free room for this one night? There's always some kind of resolution. But the only thing, and I've said this in the past when I talked about going to hotels, you can save money at a hotel just by asking a question, and that is, can you do better on the price? I literally made a trip or had a trip to Florida last year where that was the whole thing that I did. I never booked a hotel room in advance. I spent almost a week down there, never booked a hotel room in advance. I would just show up to a Hilton or a Hyatt. And I would walk in there. I'd say, hey, what's your occupancy right now? They'd say, oh, it's 60, 65%. There's plenty of rooms. And I would say, all right, I need a room for myself and my son tonight. What's the rate? They'd say, it's $250, it's $350, whatever. And then you say, can you do better on the price? And just with that one question, they would come back and say, I can give you $40 off the room for the night. I mean, it was amazing just realizing that you just asking a question could knock the money off. There's no faster way to save money. There's no faster way to save money than just uttering a few words, all right? So just keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. If you're going out there, you're traveling enough, you're going to experience something. Don't lose your shit. Keep your composure. Understand there's some kind of resolution. Take pictures, keep notes, keep receipts, keep whatever. Reach out to the company and just ask them, what can you do for me? What can you do to help me? And many times the company wants to make things right, and they will. So that's all I'm going to leave you with today. I hope this helps. I'm no one special. I go out there, I travel, I experience these situations, and I'm reporting back to you. These things happen to me. They happen to everyone. And the only difference between me and a lot of people is I don't flip out about the situation. I just stuff it in my pocket for the time being, deal with it, get to my computer, and I'll get on there and I'll start emailing, or I'll get on the phone and I'll start calling. And I just start asking, like, hey, look, here's the situation. What can you do for me? And a lot of times you get some kind of resolution, and a lot of times it's in your favor. So don't forget that. If you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to us, plans@planadversity.com. We love helping travelers. We love helping event goers. A lot of new changes on the website. So please, please, please check in. Coming January, we got the new marketplace coming up where you can access courses, ebooks, professional event planners, travel planners, itinerary builders, all these different services. It's going to be amazing. It's going to take us to the next level. We can't wait for it. We love you guys. If you have any questions, let us know. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving and happy holidays. We'll talk to you again soon.